So I am hopping on here just to do a little warm up with you guys, maybe a little practice, and thought you might like to join me. So I'm going to wait just a few minutes, and I see my kitties coming in here to say hi to everybody. Hello, Eden. Hello, Eden. So here she is. There she is. I wanted to hop on today because I do this morning practice and I thought it might be kind of fun to do this with you. So I'm going to set up all of my things. So before we start this little morning practice, um, let's go ahead and get our paints ready. I'm using my Artisto pads this morning that you know I love. I'm actually using the 9x12 this morning, and I've got my palette here. Let's see if I can switch my camera around and kind of show you what I've got. So right now my cat just hopped up here and seems to want to join in. So I've got my palette. So go ahead and grab your paints that you're going to use. I've got my Artisto paper. I think today I will use, not my Neptune brush, that holds a little bit too much Hi from Arizona, Jennifer. I'm going to use my 8 Windsor, or my 8 Princeton round brush. Just in case you guys are concerned, that's clean water she's drinking. I'm going to shoo her off in a minute so we can get started. And we're just going to do a few warm-ups this morning. So I thought this is something I do anyway, so I thought I might as well do that. Hello, Colorado, and hello, Idaho. So I'm going to go ahead and hook up my phone up above me here and point it down so you can kind of go through these warm-ups with me on water control. I'm going to shoo my Eden away here, and it's just going to take me a second. I will tell you, I can't see your comments once I hook up. Hi from the UK, Michelle. It's late for you there. So I'm going to go ahead and hook up my phone now. We'll get started. Grab your paper, and your 2 wells of water, and let's get started. Hello, Ohio and Idaho. Okay, I'm going to hook up my camera now, so I won't be able to see you once I get on there for your comments, but I promise I will say hello to everybody and answer you when I'm done. So let's get this flipped around. There we go. Okay. All right. So let's, today I really wanted to help you all because one of the questions I get the most is about this water control and controlling your water with your paints. So I'm going to go ahead and use my, like I said, my 8 Princeton round. Let me just look at something really quick. Okay, perfect. So really what's so important is understanding that water to paint ratio, and really you just get that by playing, honestly, you guys. What you want to really practice is a whole page of water. With paint and water, we want to create a shine, not puddles. Now, there's times when somebody might want to, I'm going to kind of paint while I'm watching or while I'm talking here. So you know, there's times when we might want to work with puddles, but what I'm trying to teach you here and share with you what I work on all the time is working with controlling your water and paint. So I'm just going to pick up, by the way, this is my Meeden palette in case you guys ask me a lot. I'm going to pick up my paint here, and the value in here really doesn't matter right now. Just go ahead and load your brush. And now I can tell looking at my brush that there's a lot of water in there because it's kind of swelled up. It's kind of fat. Now for the beginner, that's hard to tell. If you want to make sure you don't have too much water, you can always tap your brush on your tissues. Okay. So let's go ahead and just create a square of paint here. So right here, let me see if I can zoom in. Hold on 1 second. So this is the perfect amount of water and paint right here. It's shiny, but if you look at it, it's not moving. That's what we want. That's what you want. That's how you can control your paint the best. Let me see if I can zoom in. Okay, there we go. So there's just that nice shine. Now, the other thing you have to be careful, actually, before we move on, let's just go ahead, take your paper and your brush and just practice some of those. Practice getting used to how much water that is. So I'm picking up paint in my brush right now, but I can tell by looking at it, it's got a lot in there. Now, if I tap it on here, then I go in and there we go. So I'm creating that shine, but there's no puddles, and if I tilt my paper, the water and paint isn't moving around my paper. That's the perfect wet and wet. Now this is already drying. So if I went in there right now with another color, let me pick up this pink. It's not going to move as much. Now, if I go in here, it's going to move more. And if you notice, it's creating those blooms we talk about because this paint is drier than this paint. Now here, see, it's just blending because they're both have that same wetness. And I'm sorry, I can't see your comments. I wish I could. So here we're getting a little bit more blooms because the paint I went in with was wetter than the paint on my paper. So it hits like that drier paint and kind of creates a wall. So let's go ahead and practice a few more of these wet washes so you can understand how to get that feel for how much water to use. Let me use a little darker color so you can. Okay, so right here, what I did this time, I've got some puddling. So if I turn my page, my paint is going to move. Okay, so we don't want that. We just want it to be shiny. A light shine on there. All right, and now if I go right away in there with some paint, I'm going to get a nice blend. And of course you can always help that blend. Now that's too much water. Do you see that? Because if I tilt my page, that's moving. So we don't want that. We want just a nice shine. Okay, going back to this too, because I really wanted you to be able to grasp that whole concept of the blooms and how to create just a nice blend. Again, I'm so sorry I can't see your comments. Because I went into this wash and it dried a little bit with a wetter paint, it hit that drier paint, even though it wasn't completely dry, and it created this wall and these blooms. Here, I went into it with the same wetness, so I got this beautiful blending. Very soft edges, not these blooms, which I don't mind the blooms so much because I paint a lot of florals and things like that, and it kind of looks organic. Now right here, I've got this puddle down here, so that isn't what we want, because that's harder to control with our paint. Okay, so hopefully you were able to kind of create that wash of adding just enough to make it shiny, but not enough for it to puddle. It's just, to me, the best way for a beginner to learn how to control their paint. Again, there's definitely techniques where you're using puddles of water. There's artists that do that, but for the beginner, I think this is so much better place to start. Okay, so there's also, you know, test your paper because different papers are going to give you different, and let me see if I have, I don't, let me open up, oops, I got some splatters there. Let me open up a pad of the hot pressed for you. 1 second. And you can see how it reacts differently. Goodness, people, that's going to take too long. Hot press paper, it's just, and I'm telling you this so that you kind of know, this is cold press, and you may get it down and then go to use a hot press paper and the water's going to puddle and sit on top a lot more. The rougher the paper, cold press and then rough, is very textured, and the paint's going to just suck right in. So just, I thought that was worth mentioning, because if you do use any of those different papers, that's going to definitely affect your water ratio. Let me show you this. I have this vintage paper that's 100% cotton and very rough pressed. It's handmade, it's very thick. Now, if I go in with that, with the same amount of water on here, so here we go. Here is that. Now, if I go in on here, look at that. It sucked right in. So just keep in mind, and it ended up being like a dry brush. So keep in mind what paper you're using is going to have an effect on that. Let me go in here with. So when you're doing graduated washes or washes, try to go in with that same wetness, so you get that nice wash with your wet on wet. Because if you let this dry, that's why I always work pretty fast when I'm showing you wet on wet tutorials, because if you wait too long, it's going to create these blooms. Okay, so these we were creating before I went in are flat washes. Now what I just did here was a kind of a gradiated wash. So that's another good way to learn kind of the control of your paint and water. So let's just practice. That's something I just practice a lot. So here is a wash. Notice it's just shiny, it's no puddles. I can move the water around quite easily. Now I'm going to go in and just rinse my brush and start pulling that down. You see me do this a lot when I'm blending an edge like that. So see how that blended that edge? This is just play this morning, you guys. So say I have, here's a petal point. Let me get some more pigment on there so you can see that. Point, press, and then let's say I want to just soften that edge. So I have rinsed my brush, tapped it off so it's just damp, and I'm going to go along that edge. You see me use this a lot. And it just softens that edge. For me, I don't like the hard edges. So here is that hard edge, wet on dry, which gives you those very crisp lines. And then I wash and rinse my brush. These are just warm-ups and techniques, you guys, this morning. I do these all the time, so figured I'd do them with you. And then I go in and just touch the edge of that. And it just softens that line. You will see this in the snowman I just did. You'll see it in a lot of the flowers that I create. And that's kind of what that technique is for, is just to soften that edge. So let's practice some of our actual brush strokes. I hope that kind of helped you. Tell you, I know a lot of you asked me about those blooms. You asked me, look at how beautiful that gradiated wash is right here. They blended just perfectly because I went in with the same amounts of water, but no puddling or pulling. Let me show you if you were to, let me show you if we make a wash that's very puddly. So this is really puddly. it's hard for me to even do it because I just automatically. So if I turn my paper around, it's moving around, it's very wet. Now if I go in there and try and add some second paint, it's really going to move. It's going to be harder to control. It's going to move a lot more. So it also takes longer to drive. Look at that. See how much that's moving? Now there's definitely times when there's techniques that you want to use that. But for me, I like to be able to control my washes a little bit more. And actually, this is a good chance. I practice these glazes a lot. So here's a good opportunity to practice some glazing. This is dry. Now, instead of going in with a darker color, a darker value to begin with, I always start with light washes on leaves and petals, and then I go in and I create another glaze. And you'll also see me a lot of times soften that edge just a little bit. So see that? Now when that dries, if I want to create a shadow, I'd go in again. So many times, like on my snowman hat, I kept letting it dry, soften the edge, go in with a little bit more paint, but still not my darkest value, and start building those layers. Now watch if I put blue on that, how pretty that is. Let's grab a little blue here. Now glazing, for the most part, you want to stay a little lighter because you want the underneath color to show through. So I just put a blue glaze over that. Now it gave it a warmer purple. Now if I wanted to join these two, although this may bloom, do you remember why? Because it's drier. So see, it's blooming. The water's running, it's hitting the drier paint, and then it's going to create an edge. But that would be joining together like let's do a red wash. You can't do these enough. Now see how much water is on this one, by the way? That's going to take a while to dry. So that's another reason why I don't typically work that wet in wet. But let's create let's go from red. Let me grab some red here. And we'll go into yellow. And look how pretty. So these are great not only to learn that beautiful wash, but also to practice that water control. So again, this is very movable, but no puddling. It's just shiny. Okay, now I'm going to go in with yellow down here. And I haven't done this a lot lately on my paintings, but this is a great technique for maybe sunsets and things like that. So here's this. Now I have to work kind of quickly. And I'm going to go up into that red and mix them in the middle. Look at how beautiful. So the key here again, since we're talking about water control, is doing this while it's shiny, just using it as it's shiny and not going into this when it's too dry or even dried a little bit. That's why working fast with wet on wet is critical. So we've got that. I hope you're seeing this. Let me step up here. So you've got that beautiful wash there. Okay, so practice some of these, you know, creating that wet and wet wash. Now, I always, in the morning, I just practice some brush strokes. So let's practice some brush strokes together that I talk about a lot. I'm going to zoom out a bit because I want you to see what I'm doing. So I've got my brush loaded using an 8. Now, point, light pressure, and there's our thin stroke. I do these all the time because then when you go in to create your flowers and things, you know exactly how much pressure. Now, normally I would hold my brush up near the ferrule and straight up to get the point, but I don't want to block my view here for you guys. And then let's do a little bit wider stroke. So I'm going to angle my brush a little bit more and just a little bit wider, like that. These are so great to practice. And then thicker, I'm going to angle it maybe even a little bit more. I'm actually even moving it back. And I'm going to open up my brush and drag it across. Press down, drag it across. Drag it across. Okay, now you see me a lot of times, I paint with the side of my brush because especially when I'm glazing, so see, there's those blooms I was talking about because we went into this, which had dried a little bit more, and it created those blooms because that paint and water goes up, hits like a wall, and it creates the blooms. Here, it's a beautiful blend because we had even wetness of the surface. So practice that, getting used to that. Again, wet and wet, you do have to work a little quickly. So now I use my side of my brush a lot. And I've had people ask me, doesn't that damage your brush? You know, I mean, I suppose it could, but I'm typically working very wet and wet. So I think if I was doing more dry brush, it's rubbing against the bristles and it may. So practice some of those. Getting that thick line. Now I'm going to run out of paint on my brush because I'm using more of the paint and water on my brush. But a great practice. Now the last one before I go today, I hope this was helping you. Hi from Michigan. I'm just going to take a look. Hi from Florida. My favorite is rough. Yes, mine too, Michelle. I love. Now the Meeden paper that I have is 100% cotton. And yes, has a nice rough texture. I love it. So let's see, what was I going to do here? Oh, compound stroke. Let me show you that because that's always a tough one for people. So let me show you. I'm actually going to grab my smaller Artisto pad here and the compound stroke. So the compound stroke is just a combination of the thin and the thick stroke. And then maybe we'll finish off with one more wash here if you like. I hope that's helpful for you. So the compound stroke is just thin, light pressure using the tip. As you keep moving to the right, you're going to press into your brush and widen the belly. And then keep moving and start picking up. Where I see people have an issue with this is they will stop moving. So they point and then they just start pressing and you don't get that thin brush stroke because you're just stopping. Or they'll do it here. They'll go up to the tip, but they're not moving to the right, so the end doesn't have that. And again, you use those type of brush strokes for your leaves. So let me show you the leaf here. Point, press, point. Point, press, point. Oops. So there you go. Yeah, whoever said that, I love, now there's the wet and wet. So if you notice, that was using the first leaf glaze I did was just shiny. It wasn't puddling, it wasn't pulling, it wasn't too dry. And then I went in with the blue with the same dampness. So again, that's really about practicing and understanding how much water you have on your brush. So I can just look at my brush, and if I held it up, there's even a drip coming off it. But if you're ever in doubt, just tap off your brush. So let's do another leaf here to practice that controlling our water. So I've got a drip here. So point, press, point, point, press, widening out my brush, point, just like that. Okay, now I'm going to go in there before that dries with some yellow. Now I got to work kind of fast, and if I think I have too much, just dot it off, point, press, pick up a little more of that yellow, point, press, just like that. So it's blending beautifully. Now if I waited too long to go in with that yellow, it would bloom, right? Here's some blue. This might bloom, but I think we'll be okay still. And it's, you know, you guys, so it depends on how quick it dries. It depends on your weather. Right now we're very wet and cold here, so my paint is drying much quicker than it might normally. And the water control this is another thing that I get asked a lot. So when I say use a light value, I'm saying 80% water, 20% pigment. But that doesn't mean your brush is loaded with more water necessarily. You're just using that, it has more water in it just to control the value. You still don't want to have your brush with too much water. See how much came off there? So that's something good to remember. And actually, I practice those a lot. So let's start with a dark value. Here's our dark value of sap green. Can even go a little bit darker. And then press, so again, just shiny. There's no puddles here. It wouldn't move if I turned my paper. It's just shiny. And then I'm going to wet my brush, remove some of that, and go in and do a lighter value. So this is a mid value. Now I'm going to go in and rinse my brush again. And now we get our lightest value. In every painting, try to have all three values because that creates such depth. So this really pops out. This is kind of that mid-range, and then this would be more in the background. So foreground, midground, background. These are all washes, lots of water control. Now, if I was to go into each of these as they dry more and more, you'll see, and that might have been actually a good little technique here, is paint a swatch, and just like a large one, let's do a large one here, and just practice going into it at different levels of dryness, and you can see how the paint will react at different levels of dryness. So now we'll have to let it dry just a bit. But if I go in while it's wet with the same amount of wetness, let me go in that with some blue. So that's going to blend nicely. And I don't have to, but you know, a lot of times I will kind of help it along. But look at that blend, how nice. Now, if I wait a little bit longer and this starts to dry, and this is a good exercise for you to kind of understand how much time you have. So let's see if we can get that to dry a bit, and we will go in there. Actually, I could probably go into this one and add some of that blue, and I most likely will get some blooms. So right away, see how it's not blending and flowing like this, and it's stopping at the edge of the green paint because it's like it hit a drier wall. So we're not getting this beautiful blend we did when we went in with the same wetness. Now, if I go onto this, that is completely dry, I will get a complete hard edge, no blend at all. So play with those different levels so you can see that. Here I went in with just enough water to be shiny. You don't want to drip. So if you need to, dab off on your paper and then go in and just start playing with these. Get used to how much water. Like for me, I can tell just by looking at my brush, kind of I have too much water or I don't have enough. When you go into your palette before you go onto your paper, a lot of times now, because I just know how much, I will say just tap your brush 3 times, 3 to 6 times, and it will get rid of some of that water on there. Or dab your little paper towel and get rid of some of that water. So here we've got, again, that beautiful wash. Now if I went into these, because they've dried a little bit more, I'm most likely going to get some, it's going to stop. It's not going to blend like this, just like it did here, because this is drier than what I went in with. So just some of these little practices that I do a lot, and I think playing with those, you're going to get more and more comfortable with them. Let me just look at some of your comments. I hope this was helpful. Tapping the water off, definitely. Hello from Florida and Michigan. Hi from Vancouver. Ooh, Canada. Hello, Isabella. Okay, well, I hope this was helpful for you. I figured this is stuff I do a lot of times just in the morning or at night, and I thought it might be helpful to you to play along with me. Here's another C stroke, point, press, add another one on the other side, point, press, make that fun little C. Now I've got a little bit of a puddle there, see it? If you do get a puddle, you can always tap off your brush and go in and just pick it up. Just go in and lift it off. So there is ways, if you do have too much water, you can do something like that and pick it up. So I've got a puddle, tap off my brush, just pick it up. And then I can go in with my blue or whatever color I'd like. So there you go, you guys. That was just a short little practice. I hope it was helpful. Practice these washes, getting good at laying down a wash that's just shiny. You can tell the puddles because if you move your paper, it will, the puddle line will move around, and that's what you don't want. If you do have that, you can always dry off your brush a bit and just pick some of it up, and then go ahead and create your wash. And brush strokes, I think those are always great warm-ups. Our C strokes, our thin lines, thicker and thickest, and then of course our compound lines. All right, everybody, have a great day. I hope that was helpful. Warm-ups. Ooh, Cape Cod, hello. New England coast, beautiful. Oh, thank you so much, New England coast. All right, you guys, if you have any questions, let me know, and I will try and answer them all for you. And let's see, let me turn my camera around here and say goodbye to everybody. All right, guys, I hope that was helpful. Practice that water control and laying down your washes with not too much water in your brush. And you'll know that because the water will move when you lay it down. And then, of course, practicing your washes and getting used to working with that as well. All right, everybody. Ah, wonderful, Cindy, welcome. Thank you, Veronica, you too. Nicole, everybody, thanks for hopping in here with me. Cindy, you're in the right place. I love working with new watercolor artists. I've been painting my whole life and in all kinds of areas, commissions, painted for boutiques, created my own line of cards. So I hope I can help you and answer any questions. All right, everybody, we will talk to you soon. Have a wonderful, beautiful, and creative day. All right, bye-bye.